I think he learned the lessons that it's unwise to share power with other groups. The Ba'ath in 1963 had shared power with the military outmaneuvered them, and they were forced out of power. The second lesson he learned from that was to put the military in the barracks, get the military out of political power and put them in the barracks, and he's been remarkably successful in doing that for a long period of time. Third, I think he learned from that experience never to allow splits in the leadership. And this, I think, is what we call his paranoia, that he is unduly suspicious of any thoughts even of dissent or opposition, which must be crushed. And he's very good at crushing them.
Suspecting Saddam of subversion, the military regime jailed him. There he began to plot the future. He would become a brilliant and sometimes subtle tactician, but his basic tactic was the crudest of all, to restore discipline to the Ba'ath Party through selective terror.
People who were with him in the prison in 1965 told me that he was keen to read books about Hitler, about Stalin, things like that, which help him to know how he could seize power, how could he manage keeping power in his hand, how he could get rid of his opponent, things like that.
In July 1968, the Ba'athists seized power again, this time under President al-Bakr. The young Saddam had connections. Bakr was Saddam's cousin, and he entrusted his 31-year-old relative with the most important job of all, running the state security apparatus to extinguish dissent both inside and outside the party.
The curious thing is that when the Ba'ath Party came to power, its secret organizations remained secret, even though they no longer needed to be. One wonders why the party should remain secret when it's in power. Here we should take into account the psychology of the leader Saddam, a man who's afraid of society, who doesn't trust his neighbors. These features have left their mark on Iraq since the Ba'ath Party came to power. The state doesn't trust its neighbors. The party organization doesn't trust its members. The government doesn't trust its ministers. All this reflects the psychology of fear and terror in which Saddam has always lived.
In 1968, Sami Ali was a journalist in Baghdad. After publishing secret Ba'ath documents, he found himself being interrogated by Saddam Hussein.
I felt I am in front of a very powerful person. That is the man who will decide my destiny. He was very serious, and he said, we are different from the former regime. He said, we are going to clean Iraq from all the weak people, all from unwanted people. So we have a message. We have a plan to do it, and we are going to do it.
That message was soon delivered to the Iraqi people. The public came in their thousands to Liberation Square to witness the fate of those the Ba'athists claimed had plotted against them.
When we went there were many speakers there. They were speaking about against Zionism, against the traitors, against the policy of Ba'ath government, what they are going to achieve, what they are going to wipe out all the traitors inside, like those people hanged there. All the traitors will be hanged.
You could see the bodies very closely. These were hanged for, by that time, about 4 hours. And you could see, because the neck was broken, it has actually stretched to about 1 foot long. I myself in particular remember I was pushed right against one of the hanged bodies, and I still remember my head hitting one of the shoes of one of the hanged men. Up to that time, people could be critical. They could criticize the government or statements made by Ba'athist officials, including the president at that time and Saddam Hussein as well. I realized that this can no longer continue. and that we have to be careful about what we say.
In the early years of the new Ba'athist government, 2,000 political opponents were executed or disappeared at the hands of state security. Even the man Saddam put in charge of the service was executed for plotting against the Ba'athists. Saddam then restructured the security operation.
Saddam was very instrumental in developing the security apparatus for the regime and used it not only as a way to provide the regime with intelligence and prevent coup plots, but also to purge the regime one by one of its enemies and of his enemies, so that Saddam was able to build a power base for himself. And it took probably about a year and a half before Saddam really emerged as the number two man behind Bakr, through a series of systematic purges and consolidation of power.
He created 3 separate networks: the Internal State Security Service, the Aman, reorganized with the help of the KGB; military intelligence, or the Estakabrat, to gather military information from abroad and carry out assassinations. And watching over both of them, the Ba'ath Party's own internal intelligence service, the Mukhabarat. This was by far the biggest and most important intelligence service of all. It also kept an eye on the police, the army, and other mass organizations. The idea was that the Mukhabarat should literally penetrate every street.
Every member of the party would be responsible for a block of streets. He would have to know who are the people there who are against the Ba'ath party, who don't like Ba'ath ruling Iraq. This actually set the infrastructure, and I think is the most dangerous way of keeping security, because making neighbors, spying on neighbors, relatives spying on relatives.
Long before Saddam became president, he knew he would have to penetrate the family itself to keep control of the revolution. Children were an early target. Young pioneers pay homage to the one they call the Magnificent Warrior. This hero worship by children began in the early 1970s, when Saddam urged them to call him uncle. And in 1977, Uncle Saddam made this appeal to the Iraqi family.
Teach them to criticize their mothers and fathers respectfully if they hear them talking about organizational and party secrets. You must place in every corner a son of the revolution with a trustworthy eye and a firm mind that receives its instructions from the responsible center of the revolution.
As Saddam's power and influence grew in the 70s, it was clear that he had designs on the presidency itself. But he also knew that his cousin, al-Bakr, had powerful support from the army. So, with meticulous cunning, he began to plot against the military establishment. One of Saddam's first targets was Bakr's defense minister, Hardan al-Takriti. A former Air Force commander, Hardan was one of the president's favorites, but he had lost favor in a policy dispute. Publicly, Saddam supported him. Privately, he had other plans to make sure Hardan would not stand in his way.
Hardan was ordered to leave the country. He went to the airport. Saddam gave instructions to the airport to stop the airplane so that he can go and say goodbye to Hardan. He went to the airport, he went up the plane, and he kissed him goodbye. So people felt that this man must be innocent. I mean, Saddam has nothing to do with this plot. But only a few weeks later, he arranged an assassination and he killed him in Kuwait.
16 generals were imprisoned or executed. Saddam was at al-Bakr's side, young and clearly ambitious. Why did al-Bakr trust the much younger man?
Because Saddam is one of his relatives, and Saddam a young man. So al-Bakr thought that Saddam will have no ambition to take his place, at least for the first 20 years. So he trusted him, and he brought him, and he pushed him up.
And he was wrong.
Yes, he was wrong.
Systematically, Saddam had removed Bakr's closest colleagues. In July 1979, Bakr resigned for reasons, he said, of ill health. Saddam, the new president, 42 years old, would trust no one but himself.
Saddam has said, I can judge a conspirator against me from his looks. And a look is enough for me to know he's a conspirator. And when he believes somebody is a conspirator, I think he deals with him before the would-be conspirator would move against Saddam.
He is able to read between the lines and also to read people's eyes. Anyone who goes to see him discovers that the first thing the president does is look them in the eyes. He does rely heavily on his sixth sense, on his instinct of just knowing when something is fishy.
Those around him could never rest easily, not knowing what the president was thinking or what plots he suspected. They would soon find out. His first major purge took place in 1979 at a special meeting of the Ba'ath Party leadership. Saddam Hussein insisted it be videotaped. What follows is a numbing spectacle of terror. The business of the meeting is very grave. The delegates await anxiously as Saddam prepares to speak. He claims that this time his failed sixth sense has failed him.
ومع ذلك كنا صابرين وبعض الرفاق كان يلوم على بعضنا انه عندنا مثل هذه الاكتشافات ومع ذلك صابر على الحال.
A senior Ba'ath Party official then rises to confess the existence of a major plot.
Then people start to call for a wider purge. Ali Hassan al-Majid, for example, who's his cousin, and who was the governor of Kurdistan responsible for the severe repression of the Kurds and was also initially in charge of the occupation of Kuwait. He says to him, what you have done in the past was good, what you will do in the future is good, but there's this one small point. You have been too gentle, too merciful. Saddam says, yes, that's true. People have criticized. It's bizarre. People have criticized me for that. He says, but this time I'll show no mercy.
Half an hour into the proceedings, and the first conspirator is plucked from the audience and led away to certain execution. Saddam, meanwhile, is looking relaxed, drawing on a cigar. But when he begins to speak, his tone becomes severe. More conspirators are led away, and as the numbers grow, the mood rises to a frenzy of anticipation, for no one can be certain that he might not be next.
If you can imagine what it was like to be sitting there, am I about to be executed? And then, as he is doing this, to luxuriantly light up a cigar, the absolute lack of feeling for human suffering and the total sadistic power over their lives, really quite awe-inspiring.
In a rising crescendo of desperation to prove their loyalty, the surviving Baathists shout, "Long live the party! Long live the party! God save Saddam from conspirators!" Saddam, meanwhile, can be seen reaching for a tissue. The tears are contagious. Then, to guarantee the loyalty of his high command, Saddam goes to sit among them. He then invites them to form the firing squad to execute their former comrades. Saddam has neatly lured his colleagues into sharing guilt.
When one just expediently deals out death for the sake of control, one doesn't have to be personally involved. In fact, Saddam reminds me of Joseph Stalin in some ways, who similarly took an enjoyment in the dealing out sadistically life and death to his ministers, almost whimsically.
A few days later, crowds celebrating the executions chant Saddam's name, an early expression of the personality cult that he would refine over the next decade.
Iraq was a a disparate group of peoples, of different religions, of different ethnic backgrounds, and he needed an ideological glue to solidify the country. So this is why he created a mythology around himself. It's why he tried to create a common history that was a history of greatness. It's why he's used terror and repression to homogenize his people, because the only way that Saddam saw that he could stabilize Iraq and rule Iraq was by pulling the country together.
He also had the benefit of oil. Iraq has the world's second largest reserves, and Saddam was going to use them.
I think he used the oil revenue in a very intelligent way. During the years 1980, 1989, 90, the total income of Iraq from oil was, on average, $12 billion a year. And the credit line and various loans that the United States, Britain, and others have given him, the total income during these 10 years amounted to about $223 billion. So there was plenty in the kitty, not only to spend on military infrastructure, as we have seen recently, but also to spend on social, educational, and projects where the greater masses have benefited. This has increased his adulation, and it was a two-way kind of something given by the leader and something gratefully received by the population at large.
American scholar Christine Helms met Saddam for the first time in Baghdad in 1979. The president insisted on broadcasting her 3-hour-long interview with him on national television.
Saddam is a man who, if you look back over the past 20 years, has always been an activist, a doer. He creates things that are happening. He's looking down the road. This is the visionary aspect about him. His main concern has always been survival of the Iraqi state, maintaining the territorial integrity of the Iraqi state, minimizing domestic discontent, whether through the use of force or the Iraqis have a phrase, kadu ayn, the carrot and the stick.
He is also utterly pragmatic, prepared to change course when it seems necessary. For years, the Kurds have been fighting for independence from Iraq. Even before he was president, Saddam had courted Kurdish leaders and signed an agreement conceding their major demands.
He charmed all the Kurdish leadership. We felt he was knowledgeable, he was young, he was determined, and it seems he was very, very well briefed on our demands. So sometimes he would pronounce some of our demands before we saying them.